Hi, this is Cory Kerr, and this is Illo Talk, and today I'm going to talk about creativity is analog, not digital, aka why you should sketch on paper and not try to start immediately in the computer. Before I do that, I do want to jump in and just tell you that this design that you're seeing here is one that will become a sticker later when I launch my Patreon account, but you can get it right now as a shirt, as a hoodie, as a tank top. I think I've got baby onesies. There's a bunch of different kind of print-on-demand services that I'm doing through the Threadless store. And if you go to corykerr.com/store, it'll take you right there. There's a bunch of designs, a bunch of new ones that you may have seen me produce in the last couple weeks. And I'm pretty excited about it. So go check that out. And if you haven't got on my email newsletter, go to corykerr.com/email and get on there and let me know the type of things that you want me to talk about, and also get notified when I release new videos and new products and new illustrations and whatnot. So we were all born creative. We were all born artists. And over the years, that got beaten out of us. But I want to take a minute to talk about that for a second. When you were in kindergarten, or even before you were in kindergarten, you drew. We all used to draw to communicate. Before we were able to communicate verbally, before we learned to speak, we would draw. We would draw things and we would depict things visually. We might not have been very good at it, but drawing and being creative and visually communicating is something that has been part of humanity for a very, very long time, and it's just kind of ingrained in us. And if you ask a group of kindergartners, a classroom of kindergartners, to raise your hand if you're an artist, all of them are going to raise their hands. They're all artists. But after a while of being told to sit down and shut up and do exactly what you're told, and that's wrong and this is right, and having other people's judgment kind of imposed on you, some of us lost that. And if you ask a group of second graders who's an artist, not as many are going to raise their hands. By the time they get to fourth or fifth grade, there's going to be a handful in each class that kind of identify as artists. And by the time they get to junior high and high school, there's going to be just a couple in the entire school. And we've been fed this lie that we are not creative, or that you didn't do that right, or that, whatever. And so we kind of stop because we're afraid of failure, or, we've been told by the authorities, by the teachers or our parents or other adults, that we're doing it wrong. But the fact of the matter is that we all know how to communicate visually. Some of us may not have done it for a long time. But I'd like to push this idea of working physically. I have a desk that has a whiteboard top, and so I use that all the time. I draw on windows with whiteboard markers. I've got whiteboards in my office and studio, and then I always carry with me a sketchbook. And the reason for that is I have an iPad. I've got that type of the type of digital things that you can do, but every time you get into something digital, every time you get into the computer, every time you get into something like that, you start fighting the software a little bit. And when you're fighting the software, you stop thinking creatively and you start thinking analytically. You start thinking about process. You start thinking about how things work, what keystrokes to do to fix things. It's also way too easy to delete and erase. And it's sometimes in our mistakes and in our iterations are really where things work out really well. And you can kind of see that, oh, I can take that a little bit further, and I can go and I can do this and I can do that. And it's really helpful to be able to make mistakes. It's really free to know that this is a piece of paper. This isn't the final product. It'll be fine. I know it'll look better when I'm done. And the other thing is, you already know how to use a pencil. One end puts the line down, the other end takes the line off, right? That's it. One end draws, the other end erases. You don't really need to know, like, what the keystrokes are, or have the right hardware, or even have a computer. Anything, a marker, a crayon, anything, you can do that, right? There's also something special about the tactile response that your hand and your arm get from moving across paper. There's something about I draw on a Cintiq, which is a Wacom. It's like a monitor, computer monitor that you can draw right on the screen. And there is something significantly different about my hand sliding along glass, and that there's no little bit of resistance from kind of the tooth of the paper. there's something different about doing it on paper. Now, when I'm executing, if like this, what you're watching right now, I've already got this idea, and I've already sketched this out. And actually, as you see this started out, I inked this on paper, and I kind of cleaned up the inks digitally here. But I did the whole sketch and whole inking thing on paper, and there's something about the quickness of that, and the life and the humanity that's breathed into it. In addition to that, I really feel like it kind of spawns. I really feel like it kind of creates a mode of creativity. Your mind gets into this idea where you feel texture, you feel wood, the wood of the paper or the board or whatever it is, and you're moving in space a lot more than just clicking on a mouse or moving your fingers across the keyboard. Your arm and your shoulder and your torso get involved. Anyway, so even if you're not an artist or don't consider yourself to be creative, I would recommend that if you're trying to come up with ideas, come up with creative ideas, if you're trying to brainstorm, if you're trying to solve a problem, I would recommend drawing it out. And I've got a couple videos that I'll link to in the notes, or they'll come up on the screen, where I go through kind of some creative processes where you kind of can do word lists or mind maps or whatever else, and kind of take those on. But really, I challenge you to like ignore the siren call of digital as long as you can in your process. And this is coming from somebody who mainly illustrates digitally. But I start my sketches, I start them on paper. And I think that's where I get a lot of ideas. Just fill notebooks full of sketches, and just sketch and sketch and sketch. And don't worry if your sketches aren't good, because that's not the point of sketching. Sketching is not to be good or bad or to have a certain quality or to meet a certain standard. Sketching is to get ideas out. It's kind of like if you go into a really old house and you're going to get a drink of water out of the sink, right? The first thing that you do is you turn the water on and you let it run for a while to kind of get all the gunk and the nastiness of those old pipes that's just been sitting there, because you want some good, fresh, clean water. And a lot of times that's what sketching is you're running that water to get the rust taste and the metal taste out of that water so that you can get to the real creativity. And oftentimes you just get into that mode of moving your hand and kind of drawing and just getting into I'm just going to not worry about it. And you have this thing, everybody has this kind of inner critic. And the inner critic is going to try to make you assess or critique your sketches while you're sketching. And you should assess your work and you should critique your work, but you should do it later on in the process. During the sketching phase, during the thumbnailing phase, you shouldn't critique. And so anytime you hear that voice in your head say, that's not very good, or that looks kind of weird, just ignore it, right? And anytime you hear that voice say, hey, this is looking really good, ignore that too, because you need to get into the mode of thinking, no judgment on your thumbnails, no judgment on your sketching. Later on, when you're trying to fine tune and execute something, you can start passing judgment and be critical. But as you get the water flowing, as you get the ball rolling, as you're getting your creative juices kind of ramped up, you can't have that analytical judgment in your mind. All right, so that's it. This is a short one, but hopefully you enjoyed that, and feel free to subscribe. In fact, don't feel free to subscribe. Just do it. Do it right now. Click the button if you haven't already. Check me out online. Go to corykerr.com to see some of my work. corykerr.com/store will get you to my new t-shirt shop, and corykerr.com/email will get you to my email newsletter where you can get lots of different things. And if you want to follow me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat, those are the ones that I'm really focusing on. That would be awesome. And all of those links are on my site and in the description of this video. You guys rock.